With the Galaxy Unpacked event for 2024 only about a week away, we are so very close to having the full unveiling of the Z Fold 6 and the Z Flip 6, as well as probably some watches, some earbuds, and maybe even a health tracking ring. And we finally now have leaks about the Z Fold 6 and Z Flip 6 that go beyond just what the devices look like. I unfortunately cannot directly show you this stuff in this video for fear of a copyright strike from Samsung, because it appears to be material that they would potentially do that sort of thing with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it all down to you. We're going to use other imagery to sort of illustrate what we're talking about, and you're still going to get the same information, and I'm not going to be at risk of having my YouTube channel shut down. So the first thing I want to say is this all does come from EV Leaks and his Substack newsletter. If you don't know who EV Leaks is, they are one of the biggest tech leakers on the planet. This is their Twitter page, and like I said, this is where this is coming from. And this is the sort of thing that we're actually talking about, the copyright strike issue with these sorts of things. I'll put a link in the description to his Substack so you can go check that stuff out yourself. The first detail that I want to touch on with these devices is that finally we are getting an upgrade from IPX8, which basically means that you have no dust protection at all, but you do have water immersion protection up to 4.9 feet for up to 30 minutes without damage. That's pretty doggone good for a foldable phone, but the lack of any dust protection has long been a problem, and with this leak, we know that we are now going from IPX8 to IP48. So this is not like incredible dust protection, but it is better than nothing. And let's actually kind of dig in and look at, like, what does IP4X actually get you? What does the 4 mean? You can see a breakdown here. 0 means no protection against contact and ingress of objects. 4 is basically stuff that is 1 millimeter and larger. So anything that's a millimeter or larger, your device is protected against most wires, slender screws, large ants, etc. So I want to make this very clear. This is not like a crazy level of dust protection, okay? So according to this, anything smaller than 1 millimeter should be able to still potentially find its way into your device. Even small ants will be apparently potentially a problem. But it is a step in the right direction, and it is better than nothing. I'll also quickly mention that for the cover displays, we are still sticking with Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2. So no upgrade there, but I don't really think we need much of an upgrade there. Victus 2 is about as good as it gets right now. So for the rest of these, we're going to try to just kind of rapid fire our way through them. And the first thing that they show, that they mention, is the summarization feature within Samsung Notes. Of course, this is going to be happening with Gemini, perhaps Gemini Nano doing this stuff on device. You've got your notes, you've got recordings that are transcribed. Those can be very quickly summarized for easier, quicker consumption. The next thing to show is actually kind of surprising. It is basically a clone of Google's dual interpreter mode for the Pixel Fold. This is a thing where you are using both screens on your foldable device to do translation. So you can hold your phone up, the person you're talking to can see their language, you are looking at your screen seeing your language. It's a pretty interesting feature, and it's something that Samsung is apparently going to be adopting with the Z Fold 6. They do also mention circle to search. No surprise there, because it is a feature that we have seen on the Z Fold 5 already, so that is coming. They then talk about the display. 2600 nits of peak brightness is extraordinarily impressive. I cannot wait to see how that screen compares to the OnePlus Open. If I'm not mistaken, the Z Fold 5 was 1750 nits. This is 2600. That is a significant, they say 1.5 times brighter jump for the Fold 6. That is really, really significant. We do get confirmation that unfortunately that camera setup is remaining the same. 12 megapixel ultra wide, 50 megapixel wide angle, 10 megapixel 3x optical zoom. Boo on that one. 10 megapixel cover display selfie, and then a 4 megapixel under display selfie for the inner screen. It's disappointing. It's not necessarily what you want to see, but the cameras should still be fine. They just aren't getting a whole heck of a lot better. Potentially not really better at all. We do also get confirmation that weight is dropping from 253 grams on the Fold 5 down to 239 grams on the Fold 6, which is about the same weight as the OnePlus Open, leaving the Pixel Fold as the heavyweight of the foldable world. We also did get confirmation on the dimensions of the Fold 6. As you can see, Fold 6 in blue, Fold 5 there in red. And the differences are subtle, but they are still at least something. So if we move this around here, you can see that the Fold 6 is slightly shorter than the Fold 5, and it is also slightly wider than the Fold 5. It is also 5.6 millimeters versus 6.1. It is ever so slightly thinner. Of course, when the device is closed, you are getting a wider cover display, not just because it is slightly wider from a physical standpoint, and that small difference that sticks out from the side here, when the device is folded, obviously that is going to kind of double up. It's also wider in terms of the cover display because they are shrinking the area next to the cover display. On most of these foldables, you have this hinge area over here that's quite wide that is getting a whole lot more narrow, so the screen is able to expand. I'll also mention that the battery is staying at 4,400 milliamp hours, which is another thing that, yeah, they're getting the weight down. I'd like to see that battery get a little bit bigger too. In terms of the Z Flip 6, rather interestingly, it's getting a little bit thinner, 0.2 millimeters thinner, which is not a whole lot, but it is surprising considering we're actually getting a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. That's up from 3,700 milliamp hour on prior models. So that is, in my opinion, a very nice step in the right direction. More compact, yet bigger battery. You are also getting that same dual interpreter mode using the cover display and the internal screen. So that is a nice thing to have as well. Another place that the Flip 6 is getting a pretty decent upgrade is with the camera hardware. They're finally replacing that 12 megapixel sensor with the same, probably the same 50 megapixel sensor that the Z Fold has had for a few years now. It's old for the Fold, but it is new for the Flip, so I'm going to give a thumbs up to that move. Sadly, one object that is found underneath the services and apps section of this particular leak that is disappointing is it says Samsung DeX support, and then beneath that says the word no. Once again, the Z Flip, despite the fact that it has the same internal hardware, the same processor, and it's more powerful than devices that have ran DeX in the past, quite a bit more powerful, we are still not getting DeX on the Z Flip 6, which I really cannot wrap my head around. You can say that it's because it's thin. The Z Fold is also thin, and it can do it. This makes no sense at all to me. Put DeX on the Flip. Why not? Lastly, both of these devices, the Flip and the Fold 6, are apparently going to be shipping with 12 gigabytes of RAM. Now, this is a good upgrade for the Z Flip, but I think there's more to it than just that. Just saying, hey, let's put more RAM in it. I talked about this in a prior video around the fact that Google is apparently shipping some of their new Pixels with 16 gigs of RAM. And you may ask yourself, why on earth do we need 16 gigs of RAM in a phone? And the answer, I believe, is AI. These large language models, when they are running on device, they are quite large to be unpacked, to be constantly available on your device. And if you want to do that, you're going to need a lot of RAM. So Google's going to 16. Samsung is sticking with 12 on these devices. It's going to be interesting to see how that sort of changes how these two devices, Pixels and Galaxy Flips and Folds, how they are able to utilize these LLM features. As we know, Samsung does use Gemini Nano. How will that affect things going forward? Personally, I think it'll probably be okay, because I think what's happening is Google is doing something very specific and unique with their assistant that should be matching what Apple has done with Siri, and that's probably why it's going to take so much more RAM. What most people are getting is probably going to be a step down from that, and that's why you're going to be seeing 12 gigs of RAM in these devices. Even though, yes, indeed, it appears as the price is going to be going up to $1,899 for the Fold 6. And if the rumors are to be believed, $1,100 for the Z Flip 6. So $100 price bump on both devices. Honestly, despite the fact there's not a whole lot that's changing. I did make a video kind of going over the things I thought were the most positive about the Z Fold 6. I'll put a link to that video in the description down below if you want to check that out. But it is definitely a little bit on the underwhelming side for me when you consider the price is apparently, again, it's a rumor, going up. So guys, you are now up to date on the Fold 6 and Flip 6. Of course, like I said, the Unpacked event is coming up in just a handful of days. We'll be here on this channel live streaming that and chatting in the chat down below, having a good time reacting to these new devices. So hit that subscribe button before you leave. Check out all the links in the description. Like I said, to EV Leaks Substack, you can actually see the imagery for yourself if you do go there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friend.